on the position. I suppose the way it would start, you can tell us a little bit, something about yourself, whatever you want to talk, whatever you want to say, and then we'll go around the table.
Okay, thank you. First of all, thank you for the opportunity to be considered for this position on the North End Library Board. My name is Laurie Knoll. I am a resident of McCandless now for 12 years. We moved here when my son was old enough to go to school, and he's now a senior, and my first instinct was to start thinking about what I'm going to do once I have an empty nest. So I was looking for things in addition to my full-time regular job that I have, and this caught my eye, and I love the library. I am a fan of Northland Library. I lived in the city before, and I just think the Northland Library offers so much to our community and would really like to be involved in keeping it going as strongly as it's going right now. I work for the Postal Service. I've been an employee there for almost 34 years. I started when I was very young. I did graduate from Point Park University with a degree in communications. I currently am the manager of consumer and industry contact for the Postal Service, which means I listen to people who are unhappy or who need help with the Postal Service and their issues. No.
You don't get many complaints, I don't think.
Actually, Western Pennsylvania is the #1 service district in the country, so I probably have a lighter workload than my companions across the country. So I'm a little bit fortunate there. Currently, my boss is working in another position, so I'm currently filling in for her as the marketing manager. Marketing is a little misnomer for the position. We cover consumer affairs, retail, things like that. It's not really a marketing position like you would think of in the private sector. I have very limited experience with nonprofit groups. Back in college, I was a volunteer for the Red Cross, and then I was briefly employed there as well during the summer months. So that's me.
All right, we'll start around the table.
Yeah. I don't have any questions right now. I mean, it seems like you're fairly active in the community with the Boy Scouts and St. John's Newman Church. Would you want to tell us about those experiences?
Like I said, I have a son, and I think it's very important to keep him busy, to keep him out of trouble, and also to make him be a contributing member of society and of the community. I think that happens far too often these days, that people don't realize what effort it takes to have things happen. You know, people like to sit on the sidelines and sometimes criticize, but never want to be involved in things. So I wanted him to realize that sometimes you have to be the person to jump in and take action and do things. And I wanted him to realize that living out here, he has a lot of advantages that not everyone has. Like I said, when he was born, we grew up in the city. We lived in the city for 5 years, and it's a little bit different out here. And I want him to realize that not everyone is as fortunate to have the things that he has here.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Aside from the obvious purpose of a foundation being fundraising, what would you consider to be the second most important priority for the foundation?
I think it's really important that they continue to offer the programs that they do and even expand on them. I've noticed that when I look at the programs they hit every age group. It's an amazing thing that they can cover so many different age groups, and I've noticed branching out into things like different kinds of ethnic cooking, for example. I think it's really important that I help them continue to maintain a focus to serve every member of the community. And not just McCandless, obviously, but all the surrounding communities that belong to the library.
Thank you. Nothing further?
Thank you.
Just a clarification, this is interviews for the library board, not the
Yes.
library foundation?
Yes.
Okay, just wanted to make sure you know. What do you see as the greatest strength of our library?
I would have to say the accessibility and the programs that they offer. It's an amazing thing when you can go there for just about anything. My son and I have both participated in the summer reading programs ever since we came. But then we've branched out into different things like I had to go to the college, how to pay for college or seminar that they had there, and couldn't believe as I was sitting there talking about funding college, that, remembering going downstairs to the children's section of the library. And it's just amazing to think that the library offers that scope of programming for the community. I love the diversity of the food trucks and things like that. Any way you can get people to the library and maybe expose them to what's going on there, even if they're stopping by because they want to buy pierogies and something catches their eye in the library, that's a good thing.
Thank you.
If you became part of the authority, would you be willing to be one of the workers on the fundraiser?
Oh, I don't think there's any sense in volunteering to be a part of it if you're not willing to work. I'm definitely willing to work. I have a friend actually that I met through my real job. She works with the Friends of the Bridgeville Library, and she's already given me some ideas of some of the things they do there for programs and fundraising things. And I'm pretty excited to, even if I wouldn't be selected, to share those ideas with whoever would be if it wasn't me.
Thank you.
I have occasion to use the library, I think more frequently than most people my age, for a way of looking at it. But I must say, and I always say this to everybody I can visit with on the library, they're extremely, the people at the desks, very, very helpful, very knowledgeable. I think we get excellent service from the library. That's just a little plug. Now, could you tell me just a little bit about it in the time available, what kind of the interface you have had with the library as a library? You mentioned your son and you going there when he's younger, but what services have you availed yourself of in the library?
Oh, we still go there now. Even though he's a teenager, he still has to do the summer reading program.
Yeah.
And I do it with him because I think what better way than to lead by example. And one day, I think this is a great story that kind of sums up how I feel about the library. I was waiting this summer to have my bingo card marked off for the books that I had read. And the person at the desk was giving instructions to someone on where to find the directions for the best viewing and all about the eclipse. And I thought, this is not something maybe that the librarian should have to help someone on the phone with, but it just exemplifies the willingness of them to do whatever they're asked to do. I've seen them help young and old people with things in the computer lab. I've seen them recommend books, get up and go and find a book. It's just amazing the degree that they're willing to go to interact with the community. You can definitely tell that they really like what they do and want to share that passion with the people that they serve.
That's a great story. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have no questions.
Well, you've answered my questions.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Very nice.
Thank you.
Come in.
Thank you for the
If you
opportunity
don't get
again.
this job, then you might be a candidate for the foundation.
Okay. I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Irene Colliano. Now, here she comes.
Hello, how are you?
Would you like to start off and give us a little summary of
Sure.
your achievements? Or what-
Sure. Like my predecessor, I first would like to start with thanking the committee, the council, for not only this opportunity personally, but for opening these positions up to the entire community and telling us what's needed and where we can contribute in a much more tangible way and be involved. I think that's really important, and I applaud your outreach efforts. So, Mr. Othman, I hope that you'll accept that on behalf of the entire council. Secondly, I want to start with a preemptive apology. With the joys of the season has come the dust of the season, and so I've got a cough as a result of that, and if I start coughing in the middle of the session, I
Is that
apologize.
from raking leaves?
Well, I believe
You like
leaves
water?
were meant to be compost.
Oh.
Want some water, Hank?
Oh, that would be excellent, thank you so much. My name is Irene Caliendo, and I'm currently retired, which, by the way, is the best job I've ever had. But prior to that, I was in, thank you so much, I was in various forms in healthcare. First in operations for hospitals, which I started entry level and was a director of a department which was a 50-person department that had about a $1 million budget, and that was in the late 80s, so that budget now would be pretty close to what the library's budget of 2-point-something million would be. And was in Cleveland for 20 years and did operations there as well, and then came back home to Pittsburgh, and at that point I moved to the other side of the street, to the insurance companies. And the last position that I held at a large, actually the county hospital in Cleveland in Cuyahoga County, Metro Health System, the last position I held there was doing the contracting for managed care, which was an almost 800-bed facility with a SNF in addition, a couple of SNFs in addition to that, an almost 200-bed rehab facility, and about 400 employed physicians. So I did the contracting with about 40 of the insurance companies on behalf of all of those entities. And then when I came back to Pittsburgh, I switched roles and started to do that for first Health America, which is now an Aetna company, and then more recently Humana, and negotiated obviously on behalf of those organizations with the healthcare systems and the physicians and all of the ancillary services. So you know, that allowed me to gain an awful lot of experience as well as transferable skills to what I think would be needed for someone on the Library Authority Board. And those were obviously financial management and budget management and personnel management / human resources, project management, everything from when I was on the operations side to being responsible for bringing in a new telephone system to the entire hospital, all the way up to policies and procedures for new departments, to, again, much more recently, when I was at Health America, being the point person on a statewide committee to get what would then be a company-wide system for contract management, because that's what I did when I was at Health America. So project management and time management, organizational skills, teamwork as well as individual work, and so I think there's just a whole cadre of experiences and skills that I've had that aren't specifically, obviously they aren't totally related, or they aren't related at all to library services, but when you're talking about a large organization and trying to bring people together, I think they are valuable skills as well as transferable skills.
I see you too have also been a volunteer, including the Pittsburgh Community Food Bank. Were you at Amen to Action at the Convention Center last Friday?
No, I was not. What I do, yes, I do have a lifelong record of community involvement, starting from when I was in high school. And actually, I was at the food bank today. No, my involvement at the food bank is with our church group, and we go monthly, and we were there today. And we are actually at the main distribution center.
Yeah, right, yeah.
You know,
In Duquesne, yeah.
and yeah, out in Duquesne, and we do the packing and the repacking of food. So that's really the physical work that's needed to make this whole amazing process. If you've never been out to the main food bank, I would recommend that as a tour, because it's just amazing what they do out there. So that's the involvement there. The primary volunteer involvement that I have now is with Special Olympics with our North Stars, which is the North Hills local group, and helping with organizing and working the turkey bingo, which we just had the week before Thanksgiving, which is the major, actually the annual fundraiser for our North Stars, and then working with the floor hockey team, doing some assistant coaching when needed, but then going to
For Special Olympics?
for Special
Okay.
Olympics, and then going to the state games. And then the other primary volunteer work that I do now, and it's starting to rev up, is that via the United Way program, I go to the Veterans Leadership Program location, which is now in the Strip District. They had been in the South Side for a lot of years, and do volunteer tax returns. And because of the location, it's mainly vets. It's not exclusively vets, but so that we'll be starting that in about 6 weeks' time, and that obviously goes through the middle of April. And that's very satisfying, because then you go and you interact with people who are just salt of the earth kind of individuals, who are just trying to make it and get through life, and who just need a little bit of help. And they're just so appreciative. And it makes you think and go, boy, life's not so tough, really, when you get home after a day with those individuals.
Thank you.
Of your varied skills and experiences, which ones do you think you would employ the most as a member of the board?
Well, obviously I'm, projecting here because I've never been to any of those meetings and been involved at the library other than as a recipient of its services. But I would think probably the budget management and my business background, as well as one of the things that I'm not currently involved in but had spent about 10 years involved in is my National Sororities Foundation. And, and was involved with not only policies and procedures there, but organizing annual donor campaigns and trying to find some ways to better leverage the fundraising. So I would think that and maybe some program development and, as I said, my business and budgetary experience might be valuable for them.
Thank you. Nothing else?
What do you see as the library's greatest strength?
Well, in addition to, just the basic core service of providing reading access and education assistance to the residents, I think its greatest strength is really its success in having remained relevant in 2017. I mean, not only because they still, what's their circulation? What are it's 80-some thousand residents they support in the 5 municipalities, and they have over 1,500 programs. They've maintained their technology. They have technology services available with not just only the online reading, but the way you can reserve books, and there are programs that are relevant for not only technology, but for families and government. A couple of months ago, they had Rick Fitzgerald there. And so they keep finding ways to remain relevant and useful to their constituency. And I think that's brilliant, really, when you get down to it.
You seem to be involved in a lot of different things. When you were involved in those things, or still are you in charge of those committees, or are you just on the committee?
Sometimes, it depends. For example, something like the food bank, I'm just the worker bee. When I was involved with my national sorority, at one point I was the national second vice president, and then on the foundation I was the board member. It was a 5-person board that really was the governing body of the foundation. You know, when it's the project of Turkey Bingo for Special Olympics, you know, I've been in charge. I've been in charge of one aspect of it. So, you know, I've been on all levels of the hierarchy, if you will.
So you'd
And-
be willing to be on either side?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think you got to play to your strength, and you know, and if your only strength is being lift the box, go lift the box.
Okay, thank you. That's what I need to know.
Well, I see in your resume that you have a comment that kind of caught my attention, that you said, I believe, just picking it up, I believe access to information and knowledgeable adults is the ultimate equalizer for our youth.
Yes.
And you seem like you put that to practice in your own life, which is, you know,
Well, thank you.
that's,
My sister's back there. Maybe you could ask her. Ask her. No. No phone a friend.
You're doing great on your own.
I really don't have, I've listened very carefully to what you've said, and I must say I'm very impressed with your
Thank you.
whole demeanor and what you've said. You're obviously a very confident person and articulate, so
Thank you.
I don't have any further questions other than give you that little compliment.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I'm glad that's being recorded. I'll play that for my family
Sure.
on Christmas Day. Yes.
It is being recorded. You're
That's
on-
this?
Yes.
you're on candid
In
camera.
fact, may I have prints of that? Will be my Christmas
Sure.
gift to them. Yes.
You can make him yourself.
I have no questions.
I have nothing. I think you made it pretty well.
Very nice.
Thank you very much.
There's your candid camera.
Well, thank you. Thanks again.
Nice meeting you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
John Jackson.
Did you vouch for her?
Of course. She did if I did it. Yeah.
Hi.
Well, we let you start off and give us a
Same rigmarole.
same thing. Yes.
Thanks, everybody. I'd also like to thank you for the extended leaf raking. That's great. I agree, we're on the third round of dropping. There's still thousands on the tree. So I'm Dawn Jackson. I have lived in the community for 17 years. My kids have gone in the North Allegheny School District since first grade up. My oldest is 20, my youngest is a junior right now, I'm 16. Same community, same house, all that jazz. But I have a bachelor's in professional writing from Carnegie Mellon, and then I became a technical writer there for 16 years. So did documentation for computer application software, that kind of thing, websites. And then I became a librarian. I got my master's from Pitt and in 2010. And then I was a librarian for 2 years in the Woodland Hills School District, and then laid off, budgets as they are. And now I'm actually at CCAC North, so right down the road as a librarian. My boss went on leave in February, and they asked me to take over, so I'm kind of doing her job, plus my job. It's a little insane, but it's fun. But that'll extend until August, and then, until she returns. So that's kind of me in a nutshell. What questions do you guys have for me? I like brevity, sorry.
Yeah, I just know, I noticed you have a lot of library experience, so I guess, I mean, I think this is something that would be right up your alley. And you have from Carnegie Mellon, you have a bachelor's in professional writing?
Correct.
That's pretty impressive.
Thanks.
Yeah, I don't have any other questions or comments.
First of all, you don't intend to embarrass any relatives in the audience
I
by
don't
any
have
chance?
anybody there.
Well, that's good.
You can adopt me.
Second, what is the major skill or talent that you feel you'd be bringing to the board?
I think the combination of my librarian skills, since I am a librarian and I also am basically a director at this point in time, so I have that background. But my tech skills are really high up there. so I can bring a lot of that information to them. And I also, there's so many of them. Also, being someone who lives in the community and is interacting with people at CCAC as well as in NA, I know like a lot of the people in the community and kind of, know what they need and have their fingers in their pulse. But it's mostly that.
Thank you. When you have time, would you please fix my computer, because it's bugging.
That's more my husband's speed.
Oh, okay.
I can help you figure out how to do anything on the applications, but if it's a broken computer, my husband's actually a computer science guy.
Thank you very much.
You're
Nothing
welcome.
further.
Did he go to Carnegie Mellon too?
He did.
Oh.
He got his bachelor's there, and he's worked there for many years. He was at Google for 2 years, and now he's back at CMU. So,
Oh.
yeah.
Back at CMU.
Yeah, we're very tech heavy in my house.
Nothing further.
What do you see as a common pitfall with libraries?
I think a comment, there was just an article I read recently saying that librarians and libraries were going to be defunct by 2025. And that's definitely not true. It's just completely insane. We tend to have ways to help people find what they're looking for more quickly and more efficiently. It's kind of like the old adage of, if you have a splinter in your finger and you go to WebMD, you're going to wind up you're dead in 2 months, right? Same kind of theory with Googling things. You need someone that can show you how to find information and how to evaluate it. I think that's the main thing that libraries do that people overlook. They think if it's not technology-based, it's going to go away. But the skills are transferable. Instead of teaching people how to find things in books, we're teaching them how to find things online as well as in books. If that makes sense. So I think a common pitfall is that people just think that they're not useful. But they are, especially for people that don't have funds, don't have internet connectivity, don't have printers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Thank you.
In your experience with your library work, which seems to be very extensive, have you done any work with obtaining any grants?
I haven't as of yet, no. But I have had to go to the directors and say, we need more money for computers for our tutors, things on those lines. But I've been in a situation I haven't been able to go outside just yet.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. But I will say with my writing degree, I could probably help write.
Well, as others have already observed, you have a phenomenally extensive library resume here. Your little lead-in sentence I thought was kind of interesting. Describing yourself, I guess, a tech-savvy information guru. I've never met a guru before, but nice to make your acquaintance. With a demonstrated knack for assisting people of all ages access information and technology in various forms. I think that's one of the best summaries I've ever seen of describing something like that.
Thanks.
But I have no further questions, but thanks for coming in and enjoyed listening to what you have to say.
I have no questions.
But you made one comment that libraries might be extinct.
In the article I read, they said that. I disagree with that.
I happen to be on the GAC. I don't know what that meant.
The GAC?
I did one term
Okay.
back in the Ridge administration. And one of the things we were doing was to plot the library of the future with e-books coming out,
Yeah.
of which they were starting to come out at the time. And one of the things was, what's the library going to look like in 2020?
Yeah.
Well, I don't see it looking any different.
It looks a little different, but it's not all that noticeable, because we do now have ebooks, and we have databases of articles you can search and things along those
Right.
lines, but we still have the print materials.
Right.
We don't have print encyclopedias. I got into a discussion with someone just the other day about that. They wanted to donate their old encyclopedias. And I'm like, they're not useful anymore. I mean, Pluto's not a planet. You can't update the paper copies, but we have online versions, so.
Can I ask one further question?
Technically,
We've all had them, and
May I ask one more question? I apologize for jumping back into the line, but what you just said tweaked my memory. I heard on the radio, maybe it was TV today, someone speaking about the Encyclopedia Britannica, and they were pushing the sale of it. I guess it's around $1,000 to buy the whole set today.
Yeah.
But I'm just curious. What is your view on the value of the hardcover Encyclopedia Britannica or World Book or whatever they have today?
I don't think they have any value, to be honest. I mean, as historical pieces, maybe to document how it used to be, but they're changing constantly. I mean, think of how many things are created now that didn't used to exist. I mean, the internet came to be whenever I graduated from college. So that wouldn't be included in like 1980s Britannica.
Yeah.
But it's just, it changes too rapidly for $1,000 a drop to do it every year. It's just, it's not economically feasible, in my opinion.
All right, well, thanks for allowing me to ask additional
You're
questions.
welcome. Would you buy the online one then?
I have, it's on only about 2 or 3 discs. I have one.
Yeah,
It's amazing,
because those are more easily updated.
yeah.
Okay, I have no further questions.
Thank you, it was nice meeting you all.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank you. Thanks.
David Landis,
Oh, I'm sorry.
David Landis, here he comes. You wish to tell us, you live on Grubbs Road,
I do, I live right up the street.
and
I've been there 4 years.
you're in Ward 1,
Yeah, yeah.
not Ward 2.
Oh. Yeah, okay. 10 years before that, I lived in Franklin Park. I've been a patron of the library about 17 years. I'm an electrical engineer by training. I've been a college professor most of my career. So in many ways, compared to the previous stuff, I have no library experience. So I'm totally unqualified. On the other hand, I really do love the library. My experience as the library, basically at all the universities I've worked at, is like the intellectual center of the university, where the public library is the intellectual center of the community. I'm here because I'm about to retire in May after a lot of years as a college professor, and I'm lining up things to do that would use both skills that I have and love that I have for the community. So, I could give this medium-length story. When I was in junior high school, my mother worked as an assistant librarian and spent every day after school in the library, and that probably got me interested in going to college, getting a degree from CMU, getting a degree from the University of Pennsylvania, getting a degree from Penn State, being in basically academia for most of my career. I spent first 10 years in Pittsburgh working for a nonprofit. I was VP of Education, and so I was writing grants, doing fundraising, doing program and project management with Pitt, Penn State, and Carnegie Mellon, who are the 3 founders of that nonprofit. I've done some community things. I've done nothing directly with the library. I've done nothing directly community involvement or political involvement. It's something that I imagine finding time to do with in retirement, and if not, there's something else will certainly come along. And I have another list of things that I'm going to volunteer at or with. I have been on the advisory board, the board of visitors for the Barron College of Engineering, Barron Penn State College of Engineering. I've been an occupational advisory member at the 80 Career Center. I was on the advisory board of McKeesport Career and Technology, CTC. I'm still on the advisory board of the STEM programs at Butler Community College, Butler County Community College. So I've done lots of stuff, nothing with the library. So what else would you like to know about me or about my application?
Did you were you a professor at Carnegie Mellon University?
Yes, so I'm considered special faculty. I'm not tenured or tenure track. They hired me to run a master's program in energy science, technology, and policy that I started as essentially a startup with 7 students 7 years ago, and now it runs with about 30, 35 students. I teach a class, so I'm more, as special faculty, I'm basically like teaching faculty at Carnegie Mellon.
And what do you teach?
I teach a course in energy transport and storage. Most of my career I've been in computer technology, so this is about computers in the power grid and how that works.
Okay, thank you.
Based on your experience with the library, what would you say is its greatest strength?
The fact that it has programs that target everybody. So, when my wife passed away, I went to the bereavement seminar they had with a faculty member from Pitt. I've been to musical programs there. I see on the newsletters that they have things that appeal from elementary school through my own age group, and that they bring together people with common interests who want to learn about something. It's not such a focus on books as it is kind of a learning center or a learning community.
Thank you. Nothing else?
I have no questions, thank If you did not get this position, would you be willing to work on the Library Foundation fundraising?
I would, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening. I noticed here in your resume, your extensive resume, that.
Yeah, I'm sorry for the,
That's right.
this is what academics have.
No, that's right, but it's why you want to lay it all out there. That you wrote proposals and administered $4.5 million in grants from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania to enhance university education. And another one of us asked a question about grants, and could you describe a little bit of what your grant background
What's
is?
my role in that? Yeah, so I joined the Pittsburgh Digital Greenhouse, which was a nonprofit started by Pitt, Penn State, and Carnegie Mellon to spin companies out of the universities and increase jobs locally. And so part of what they needed to do was retrain a workforce in robotics and embedded systems, and take people who did traditional electronic design and teach them how to do integrated circuit design, how to do robotic software, how to do those sorts of things. So we basically got the education training part of what we did was funding from the Department of Community and Economic Development, some funding from the U.S. Department of Education, to basically do worker retraining. So, in fact, as a college professor, I essentially have been in the workforce development business my whole career. I didn't realize it till in this job. They put that label on me. So we wrote proposals. It was an initiative that started with when Tom Ridge was governor, and then was carried through the Rendell administration with a significant amount of funding. So some of it has both write a strong technical proposal, but had political support as well. I mean, as a college professor, your job is to write grant proposals. If you don't get your research funded, you don't get to do the stuff you want. But it's slightly different than the way the library operates, but fundamentally the same sort of ideas in a proposal, which is show how funding will make improvements in, well, in my case, with those jobs, it was employment, but in the case of the library, it's really about the learning community that is, the library is essentially a leveler for everybody in the community. Everybody has access, everybody has opportunities. I think there's some interesting challenges in kind of the Gen X and millennials who, I mean, they live and survive on their phone, and they believe everything can be found on Google, and they don't understand, well, as you said, they don't understand curating the information. And yeah, you can find it, but is it right or not? Is it fake news or not? Is it real fundamental thing? You know, these are the things that, and there are foundations out there interested in funding some of these sorts of things. And STEM as general career goal and as an interest area for kids starting in the elementary and middle schools has been an appropriate area. And the library does some of that stuff already. These aren't things that I would come and do. They do them. They need to continue to do that kind of stuff and then try to find the connections as kids get into the high school age. They tend to shift away from the traditional learning centers, and keeping them engaged is probably an interesting challenge every time for the library.
Thank you.
Sorry, I went
No,
way
but
off on a
that's-
tangent.
that's-
I thought, for a moment I was like a politician. You asked this question, I answered that question.
It was in
Sorry.
It was a great answer, but
Yeah.
I think I followed.
We prefer the term elected official.
I'm sorry. Thank you.
Good point, Ralph. Good point.
I have no questions.
I see you've published quite a bit
A fair amount, but by academic standards, it's modest.
by academic standards, yes. I have no further questions. I think if we have some of them, if the foundation would be available.
Well, I thank you, as everyone has, and you're going to have an interesting job picking someone, and you've got some pleasure in it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Rita, Mark.
Hi again, everyone.
How are you?
Hi. And by the way, millennials are actually one of the largest groups using libraries today. CNN just did a report on that. I wanted to say that that age group from 18 to 35, they use it differently than we use it, but they are using libraries like crazy, which is an interesting thing because you think they're doing this, but they are going there to collaborate. They're going there to use libraries in quite a different way. If you go into Northland during the day and see, 18, 20, 30-year-olds there using the library that way, it's really interesting. Sorry,
my
I didn't
daughter
mean to go
loves
off. I didn't mean to go off, but
And
it's a
bookstores.
positive. And I'm in awe of everybody who applied today. I just think that they're
really.
amazing and would be the talents they bring to the authority board in the form of grant writing, in the form of financial knowledge is amazing. I'm sorry. I think, I'm Rita Martin and I applied, this is my second time applying for the authority board. I've been on the foundation board for about, I think, 13 years now. Want to phase out of that, but I'll always stay involved in fundraising. I get a little perturbed sometimes with that aspect because we don't seem to have a community that understands. They think that our tax dollars are all that's needed for the library, and it's much, much more. We need much, much more than just the tax dollars. We get more from RAD than we get from the state anymore. So we need to make our community understand that it's not just tax dollars, and it isn't free. We pay for all of that good stuff in some form or another. Fundraising, and with all of the nonprofits, and I'm sure at this time of year you are all getting letters. You're getting your library letters, you're getting letters from everywhere asking for your help for nonprofits. And I think sometimes our government steps aside and lets that happen when they should be the ones. The most important thing in this community, other than our roads, is our library. The tax dollars that I give for that library is the most important tax dollars, other than my roads, I guess. I feel that's just me being a librarian, I guess. Anyway, just some thoughts. When I go to the authority board, I have a great board as it is. It's just that, to me, that's my next step. I'm really interested as I watch them go to various conferences and come up with ideas. But the most important part is how that packet of money is generated, spent, and that is something that I'd like to get involved in. And that's what happens at the authority level. Keeping an eye on it, making sure it's spent correctly, and yes, that's what I'd like to do. So those are my comments. If you have any questions, I'm ready for them.
Well, you're a member of the Northland Public Library Foundation, which generates funds, right?
Right.
And then Northland Public Library Board.
The authority board is the one that looks over the taxes that are collected, and is also in charge of the personnel for the library. They have a personnel board, I think. Yes, Mrs. Powers, you're on the personnel board, right?
Yes.
Yes, and they hire and let people go, basically, with Amy being the core person.
Discuss
in that.
salaries.
Yes,
Discuss
yes.
salaries.
So you generate the money in part, and then they decide how to spend it. Is that accurate? Or?
Are you talking about the foundation?
Yeah,
Yes.
the foundation generates the money, and then the board.
Right, and then the board, well, yes, the foundation has an agreement that we get a portion of what we generate every month, every year, at $150,000 that we contribute to the library, largely from, what we're able to get from our investments, as also other things. Now, the library needs a new roof, a new HVAC, and we're in the process of doing a garden. So the $150,000 doesn't go very far, does it? And we only have about $500,000 in reserve, and that's not going to cover those two big needs. So I watch them juggle, take care of this, patch this up for a little while till we can get money. They are applying for some state grants, which should help. Yeah, but it's you have to know what you're doing.
Okay, thank you.
Ralph?
Aside from the obvious, the roof caving in and needing the furnace and air conditioner or whatever other mechanical needs there are, what would you consider is the worst factor of the, or worst condition of the library?
You mean, what other things do I see the library needs other than those two things? Space. We need space. There are so many programs up there. Hardly any rooms are empty for when you need them. If you have a group that would meet there, but it's space. It's very crowded, and yeah, that's the one big thing I would say. And of course, that's costly. What do you do? We can't move because that land does not belong to us. I mean, technically, we can't. There's no room to grow there. We can't go up any further. We can't move out anywhere. So one of the things that the library's come up with is having a garden that would extend, at least for part of the year, some of the services, taking kids out, teaching them how to grow things. Yeah, it would be wonderful, but we really could use some more space. There's no storage space whatsoever. Yeah, it means that's what I would think is the third most important thing after you get that roof and after you get the HVAC. What would we do? They've even thought of satellite libraries, and that's a possibility. What if we were able to take all of our technology and put it in one building and have that be a place where we have, the big printers and all the computers, and have the library be a place for programs and things like. There's all kinds of possibilities, and sometimes you have to think out of the box.
Nothing further, thank you.
If there was just one thing that you could change, what would it be?
About the library? That's a tough one, but I think I would change the last thing I said.
Yeah,
I think we need that growth. It needs to be bigger. It needs to.
But
to do
geographically,
everything.
you can't do that, right? You can't.
That land was given to us, I believe, by the school district.
Yes.
And it owns that. The only thing we
But
own is the
reversionary clause.
Right.
That's the way it's set up.
right, and we only own the building.
Yes.
And
Well,
all
can
the
you
books that are-
expand the building?
They've looked at that, and
Pardon?
it's
Not easy.
We've looked at it before.
Okay.
The only way might be.
It was done once.
Go up
The only.
before that new roof's put on.
One,
Mr. Murch, you could do that for us.
one way would be to use structural steel and go up. But that would be expensive.
Yes, it would.
When we built that library, none of the municipalities had the money to. So we got the land from the school district and you built that, but there was a reversionary clause in the lease or in the contract. If we move out of there or cease to exist as a library, the property and the buildings thereon revert to the school district.
And now we have 5 communities, plus we have communities that
Well,
pay
we
no
had-
taxes.
We had
Westview, and I think there's another community that uses us a lot.
Ohio Township.
Yeah, Ohio Township, and they don't really
And
pay
Hampton
into.
uses our library. We had 4 communities originally, Marshall didn't go in when we built it. The geographical center of the area happened to be somewhere on Perrymont Road. We didn't happen to have any Perrymont Road property. So we come up with this, what about the school district, because there was property there. And they agreed to do that after a little arm twisting and intercession by Dr. Ivan Hozak, who used to be who was by then retired as board chairman and president of the school board. That property belonged to McCandless Township School District when we were all independent school districts before the jointure. That's why they were able to do that. And Marshall joined after about the 3rd referendum.
And one time we almost lost Ross.
Yes, and they had to pay back. They wouldn't go in on it originally. They didn't want to. It was a voluntary thing between the communities. It's worked out well for us.
I've often thought we could have the mall once it closes down, once everybody's buying online. We'll just take over the mall and we'll take that.
Well,
Very centrally located.
we had the library located in the mall in Northway.
Yeah,
Yes, for a while.
Temporary things.
yeah.
Yes,
While they were revamping.
revamping, while they were revamping the library,
Yeah.
yes.
Thank you.
I shouldn't, I don't, like.
I'm glad you did. It's a little lesson.
Well, I do come in once
Yeah.
in a while and say, this is what happened, and this
Yeah.
is why
Well,
it
he
happened.
was asking that, and I didn't know all of that. Some of it, but not all of it.
Now you start to know it.
Yeah.
Just to mention to the rest of the council, Rita has been part of the fundraising foundation for many years, but the fundraising committee is different from the authority.
Right.
They work together, but they're completely
Two
individual.
entities, right.
Yeah, just so the council knows that.
Am I on deck now?
You're on.
I think so.
You're on.
You're at the
The,
point.
I noticed, Rita, I must say this has been a real education for me. I've known you, for several years, but we've never, I never knew all your background, like you taught in the North Allegheny school system.
Yes.
I had no
The
occasion-
librarian in Carson.
I mean, nobody came up to me and said, hey, did you know Rita Martin was, but seriously, it's quite impressive. But also here, I mentioned the grants before, and you had, when you were at Carson, I guess Carson Middle School, I guess that's what it was called then, you applied for and were awarded several technology grants, et cetera. Do you think, I have the feeling that there's money being left on the table, so to speak, by us not availing ourselves of grant money that might be out there?
We have a foundation director who writes a lot of grants, but one of the things that holds our grants back is the fact that we have a very prosperous community. And a lot of times, the Howard Hines Foundation and other foundations want to give the money to less fortunate areas, because it's obvious.
We're a
they
victim of
need
our
it.
own success.
Yes, yes, yes. But we shouldn't let that stop us. We should be applying for grants and also, looking at our community. One of the things that the foundation has had a real hard time doing is getting corporate money. We don't have a lot of corporations in McCandless. I was just out in Marion County near Philadelphia. My goodness. They have, of course, they have that huge mall, plus there's all kinds of, industry around, and their library, their community center. I mean, it's phenomenal. And they have as many people as we do. They have about 28,000 people, and it's unbelievable. But a lot of that is generated by the corporations.
That's a pretty wealthy area
Yes.
out there, too, though,
Yeah, right. But we have to do everything we can, apply for those grants and try to get them.
Well, thank you very much. I don't have any further questions. I've enjoyed listening to you speak.
Have any questions?
I don't have any, I've already talked too
You're
much.
fine. Thank you very much for letting me entertain you here for a few minutes, and for letting me come here tonight. And I think that you have a hard job ahead of you, because I wouldn't know who to pick. Thank you.
Last but not least, Joanne Byers.
As you are well aware, I'm Joanne Powers and I'm on council. Just to give you a little bit of background, I have 3 grown children, 9 grandchildren. I'm on the library board now. I taught for Fox Chapel School District for 3 years, and then I taught for North Allegheny and taught for them until I retired. I taught at Franklin Elementary when I came back full-time. I subbed for North Allegheny for 10 years, and then I came back and taught at Franklin Elementary. And while I was there, I created a program for the students with the librarian. I work very closely with her on a how to study program. And we worked very hard on it, and it was very, very successful. And what I started in that program was a how to study for the students, because my feeling is young people spend a great deal of time what they call studying, and they honestly do believe that they are studying, but then when they end up taking a test, they look at you and say, but I really did study, and they really did spend the time, but they aren't studying the correct way. So we worked on this program and really created a tremendous program. And in that program, I started a unit that was how to write a research term paper for 4th grade, which was most unusual. It wasn't really in the curriculum, but it was very, very successful, and I did it for many years. Franklin Elementary School ended up being this first school in North Allegheny to be named the School of Excellence. And in that program, as they looked at my research term papers, I ended up going to Washington, D.C. to receive the award with the principal, and I'm very proud of that. I also did a great deal of supervising for student teachers for about 5 different colleges, and I had a great number of student teachers. I enjoyed doing that and worked very hard with them. It was nice kind of being able to give them some ideas as they came out and they were getting ready to go out on their own. I can honestly say, if you have not been to the library, and of course many of you have interviewed our librarians, but if you haven't been to our Northland Library, you need to take an afternoon or morning, go into the library, because it is a beehive of activity. There are so many wonderful programs at the library. And I am very much in favor. We have a high school student who's on our board, which I think is a great idea. And they interview for that. They send in applications and write, like a paragraph or a paper, and tell us why they want to be on that board. And I think that experience is really great. And they have a great many ideas that they add to the board. I'm also on the state committee for Pennsylvania Township of Commissioners. I'm on the board of directors for that. I'm also on the municipal risk management, which is an insurance for municipalities. I'm on that board also. Trying to think of what else I have. What else? Oh, and I do have a small business. I teach skincare for Mary Kay Cosmetics, and I've done that for 28 years. I think if you have questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Yeah, I may throw a curveball at you, Joan, but do you see any way to physically expand the library by, maybe incorporate the concept of a community center with it, or?
I have talked to Amy, who's the director. She's been here and told us about the programs, and we discussed a little bit of some ideas that she might have about enlarging the library. One of the things she came up with, and she said she didn't know if it would work or not, and I think it would have to be looked into, is possibly, how the staircase is circular? Her thought was to close in that staircase so that would give more room both floors, and then just on the outside of the library add a stairwell, like a little section. So that would give a little bit more room, not a tremendous amount of room, but at least it would give a little more room to it. Like, I would like to see them continue to enlarge the programs that they have. They have tremendous programs, but there still are so many that can be added to it, but you have to have the room to do that. And one of the things that she said, they did look at going up, but the cost would be so tremendous that she didn't think that it would, would actually be feasible. So that was the idea that we came, that when we discussed it, that we came up with.
Okay, thank you.
You're involvement with the board already, and your reports that you provide council are very informative. Therefore, I have no questions. Thank you very much.
I believe this library board appointment should only be a citizen-held position with a council liaison, and I have no questions.
With respect to the expansion of the library space, it's a pretty radical thought, but have they considered building a full-blown library annex on available ground? There's a lot of ground out there. I've never, obviously I haven't surveyed it, but where all the schools are there must be space for several acres to put a
We
building.
think it would create a problem in parking, because if you've been over to the library frequently, you can
Sure.
go over there and not find a place to park.
Well, I mean, if you do an annex, I'm
Excuse me.
talking about relocating, dedicating a space outside the library, what is now the library grounds.
I'm not aware of that.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I have no further questions otherwise.
I have no questions.
Yeah, that idea's been broached a number of times. Where would you put the satellite library? Because we have Ross and we have Marshall at the extreme ends. You have Franklin Park with a good-sized population and a demand for the library. When we built the thing, we never expected the
Bill,
growth.
I think Bill was talking about on the same piece of property.
No, I meant
You
go,
meant a satellite
Elsewhere.
property.
well, elsewhere, I was specifically,
A branch, a library
okay.
branch.
I was thinking somewhere in the general campus of where the schools are now. There's a lot of space out there, and I just thought there might be some space to add a library building. Expensive, it would be expensive, clearly.
Right,
But if you can't go up, you can't go sideways, there's only
right,
one
right.
one alternative, get
Our
in the
hands are
building
kinda
somehow.
tied.
May I
Right.
ask a quick question? What's the most recent strategic plan? We know, I'm just off the top of my head, I'm not recalling. Is Rita still here?
Yes, she's right here.
Rita, would you happen to know when the library completed its most recent strategic plan?
Yeah, we just finished it.
Not too long ago.
It was a year ago,
Yeah.
yeah, and that was not in the plan. I mean, that's something we
I think they, again, like I said, speaking to Amy, kind of like tried every avenue, and
That's when they started to put the book
the book kiosks.
the kiosks, right.
kiosk out in Y
Right.
and somewhere else.
And they have some of them that work, and then there are others that don't, so they're, yeah.
To give some relief to people
Right.
who want to get books. I have no further questions.
Okay, thank you very much,
Thank you.
and I agree. Hard decision.
Okay.
Let's see, we are still in the business meeting.
We're ready to adjourn the business meeting?
Last item would be adjournment.
Pardon?
The last item is adjournment.
Mr. President, I move to adjourn.
A second?
All those in favor of adjournment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.
That's a good group of people.
There is.